Did you know the man who played the scary island leader in The Wicker Man almost didn't take the role because he thought the story was too strange? Imagine walking onto an island where everyone smiles, but something feels deeply wrong. Birds stop singing. Songs sound sweet, but hide dark secrets. And that giant wicker man standing in the field? It's not just a prop. It's a warning. The Wicker Man isn't your usual horror movie. There are no monsters jumping out, no loud screams. Just silence, songs, and a growing feeling that you're not safe, even though everyone keeps saying, welcome. That's what makes it so powerful. It creeps into your mind like a forgotten nightmare. Let's dive in and discover 20 weird and amazing facts about The Wicker Man. Number 20. The island was real, and the locals were confused. The movie was filmed on real islands off the coast of Scotland, mostly in Summer Isle, which isn't even its real name. The crew used locations like Dumfries and Galloway and the tiny village of Kirkcudbright. Some locals had no idea a movie was being made. They saw actors in old-fashioned clothes, heard strange singing, and watched a giant wicker man being built in a field. Many thought it was some kind of art project or a cult. The villagers weren't told the full story because the filmmakers wanted real reactions. When Christopher Lee and Edward Woodward walked through town in costume, kids stared. Adults whispered. One shopkeeper later said, "I thought they were doing a play about pagans. But then I saw the fire scene and got chills." The crew even asked local children to sing folk songs. Many didn't understand the lyrics, which made their innocent voices even creepier on film. What looked like a peaceful island hideaway was actually filled with confusion, curiosity, and quiet unease. It looked calm, but was pure chaos. Number 19. The music was recorded in a barn with real folk singers. The songs in The Wicker Man aren't just background noise, they're part of the story. The filmmakers didn't use fancy studios. Instead, they gathered real folk singers and recorded everything in a cold, echoey barn in Scotland. Paul Giovanni, the composer, wanted the music to feel ancient, like it had been passed down for generations. He even taught the child actors old Scottish tunes that most adults today have never heard. Some of the lyrics talk about spring, love, and harvest, but mixed with lines about gods, fire, and sacrifice. The lead singer, Annie Ross, had to learn her parts quickly, often singing while wrapped in a thick coat to stay warm. During one recording, a storm rolled in, and the thunder mixed with the voices on tape. The director loved it so much, he kept it in the final mix. That's why the songs feel so alive. They weren't made for a movie. They were pulled from real tradition, real cold, and real wind. What sounded like magic was just people. A barn and a little bit of luck. No fake rain, only real storm. Number 18. The Wicker Man prop was built in secret and almost burned. Early, the giant wicker man you see in the final scenes wasn't built on a movie lot. It was made by real craftspeople in a field, using willow branches, straw, and rope, just like people might have done hundreds of years ago. The crew worked quietly, afraid someone might try to stop them. Animal rights groups were already asking questions, worried live animals would be used. They weren't. One night, a group of teenagers snuck onto the set and tried to set the Wicker Man on fire as a prank. Security chased them off just in time. The prop was so dry that a single match could have destroyed weeks of work. On the day of filming the burning scene, the wind changed suddenly. Flames shot higher than expected. Edward Woodward, who played Sergeant Howie, had to be pulled back fast to avoid the heat. The fire was so intense, it left ashes in the air for hours. That towering symbol of horror was almost lost before the camera ever rolled. What looked perfect on screen almost went wrong behind the camera. Number 17. The lead actor was a devout Christian and hated the ending. Edward Woodward, who played the heroic Sergeant Howie, was a deeply religious man in real life. He believed strongly in right and wrong, just like his character. When he read the script, he loved the role but hated the ending. He begged the director to change it. "Why does the good man have to die?" he asked. "Can't he escape? Can't he save someone?" But the director said no. The whole point was that belief doesn't always protect you. Sometimes faith meets fire and loses. On the day they filmed the final scene, Woodward was quiet. He didn't joke with the crew like usual. He said a short prayer before climbing into the Wicker Man. Later, he told friends he felt sick to his stomach watching the rushes. Still, he gave one of the most powerful performances in horror history because his fear and sadness were real. Not just acting, but real fear. That wasn't acting. It was real fear. Number 16. Christopher Lee called it his favorite film ever. You might know Christopher Lee from Dracula or Star Wars, but he said The Wicker Man was the best movie he ever made. Not because of the fame, but because of the message. Lee played Lord Summerisle, the calm, smiling leader of the island. He saw the character not as a villain, but as someone who truly believed in his pagan ways. Lee spent hours studying old rituals, plants, and Celtic history. He even suggested changes to his costume to make it more authentic, like adding real herbs to his robe. When the film first came out, it wasn't a hit. The studio cut it badly, but Lee never gave up on it. For years, he carried a personal copy of the original version in his suitcase, showing it to reporters and friends. This film is about belief, he once said, and about what happens when two worlds collide and neither understands the other. A monster movie star found his masterpiece in silence and song. It looked easy, but it was chaos. Number 15. The film was almost lost. Forever, after filming wrapped, the studio, British Lion Films, didn't know what to do with The Wicker Man. They thought it was too slow, too strange, too quiet. So they chopped it up. Scenes were cut. Music was changed. The ending was shortened. The version released in theaters in 1973 was only 84 minutes long, missing huge parts of the story. The original cut, closer to 107 minutes, seemed gone forever. For years, film fans hunted for it. Some said it was destroyed. Others said it sat in a dusty vault. Then, in the 1990s, a film historian found a clue. A shipping label from the studio mentioned Wicker Man, Singapore print. Turns out a full print had been sent to Singapore for overseas release and forgotten. It was recovered, restored, and finally shown the way the director intended. Without that lucky find, we might never have seen the true Wicker Man. A movie almost erased by time was saved by one dusty box overseas. What looked perfect on screen almost went wrong behind the camera. Number 13. The schoolhouse scene was filmed in one take, with real kids. The unsettling scene where children sing Miranda's song while dancing around a maypole wasn't rehearsed for weeks. In fact, it was shot in just one full take. The child actors were local Scottish kids who'd never been in a movie before. They learned the song in a week. Their teacher on set wasn't an acting coach, but a real school teacher from the village. The director told them to just sing like you do at the spring fair. Their voices wobble. Their steps aren't perfect. And that's what makes it so haunting. When Edward Woodward's character walks in, their smiles freeze, like they've been caught doing something wrong. That reaction? Totally real. The kids didn't know he was coming. The camera just rolled. Later, one girl said, "I thought we were making a nice film about festivals. Then I saw the fire scene and couldn't sleep." Innocence wasn't acted. It was borrowed from real children. That wasn't acting. It was real fear. Number 12. The director didn't want jump scares. He wanted unease. Most horror movies try to scare you with loud noises or ghosts leaping out, but The Wicker Man does the opposite. Director Robin Hardy said, "Fear lives in the quiet." He banned jump scares, no music stings, no monsters. Instead, he filled the film with smiles that don't reach the eyes, songs that sound sweet but feel wrong, and doors that stay open just a little too long. He wanted you to feel like you were walking into a dream that slowly turns into a nightmare. To create that mood, he shot scenes in natural light only, often during the golden hour just before sunset. Shadows grew long, faces softened, but something always felt off. Even the food looked too perfect. The fruit too red, the bread too fresh. Hardy once said, "The real horror isn't in the fire, it's in the politeness before it." Horror wasn't shouted, it was whispered. It looked calm, but was pure chaos. Number 11. The costumes were made from hand-sewn fabric. No zippers. Allowed to make the island feel like it existed outside of time, the costume designer banned anything modern. No zippers, no synthetic fabric, no machine-stitched seams if they could avoid them. Every robe, dress, and tunic was made by hand using wool, cotton, and linen, just like in the old days. Christopher Lee's robe took 3 weeks to sew. It was dyed using berries and plants gathered from Scottish fields. The children's clothes were modeled after 19th century farming wear, but softened to look lived in. One actor's shirt shrank in the rain during filming and had to be replaced overnight by a local seamstress. Even Sergeant Howie's stiff police uniform was slightly aged. Buttons dulled, collar starched just enough to look proper, but lonely. The past wasn't faked, it was stitched, one thread at a time. What looked perfect on screen almost went wrong behind the camera. Number 10, the final scene. Took only one shot, and it couldn't be repeated. The terrifying climax, where Sergeant Howie is burned inside the Wicker Man, was filmed in a single take. Why? Because the Wicker Man was destroyed in the fire. They only had one chance. No second takes, no backups. The crew tested small models first, but the real thing was huge, over 30 feet tall. When the fire started, wind carried embers across the field. Firefighters stood by, ready to stop it if needed. Edward Woodward was lifted into the structure on a hidden platform. He wore a fireproof suit underneath his costume, but the heat was still overwhelming. As flames rose, he closed his eyes and whispered a line from the Bible. The camera rolled from a distance, capturing the whole thing: the smoke, the falling ash, the silence after the fire died. One shot, one chance, one unforgettable ending. That wasn't acting, it was real fear. Number 9. The script was inspired by a real book about pagan rituals. The Wicker Man wasn't made up from nothing. It was based on a short story called Ritual by David Pinner, but the real spark came from an old book, The Golden Bough by James George Fraser. This book, written in the 1890s, explored ancient religions, harvest festivals, and human sacrifice. Director Robin Hardy read it as a young man and never forgot it. He believed modern society had lost touch with old beliefs and that forgetting could be dangerous. So he wove those ideas into the film. The idea that gods must be fed, that spring must be welcomed with blood, that faith demands sacrifice. Some lines in the movie, like, "Oh, foolish man," come straight from old folk tales. The filmmakers didn't want to mock paganism. They wanted to show its power and its cost. Old myths walked into a modern nightmare. Old tools, new magic. Number 8. The film's poster was designed to look like a religious icon. The original poster for The Wicker Man doesn't show monsters or fire. It shows Sergeant Howie, arms outstretched inside the Wicker Man, like a saint in a stained glass window. Designer Tom Chantrell studied medieval religious art to create it. He used soft colors, golden light, and a circular halo-like frame. The tagline? The ultimate horror movie, but the image feels holy, not scary. That was the point. The film isn't about evil, it's about belief. Two kinds of faith colliding. The poster made people pause. Was this a horror film? A tragedy? A warning? Even today, fans hang the poster like art. In some churches, it's been mistaken for a martyr's painting, a horror movie poster that looked like a prayer. It looked calm, but was pure chaos. Number 7. The sound of the wind was recorded over 3 days, just for one scene. In the scene where Sergeant Howie first lands on the island, there's almost no music, just the wind. That wind wasn't added later in a studio. The sound team spent 3 full days on the Scottish coast, recording gusts, whispers, and howl. They used old microphones wrapped in cloth to catch the softest breezes. One recording was made at dawn when the air was so still you could hear a single leaf drop. That sound was mixed with louder winds to create an eerie calm, like the island was holding its breath. Director Robin Hardy said, "If you can hear the wind, you know you're alone." The silence between the wind gusts made viewers lean in and feel the isolation. Nature didn't act. It waited. No fake rain, only real storm. Number 5. The film's editor quit because he thought it was cursed. After principal photography ended, the first editor hired to cut The Wicker Man walked off the job. He told friends he felt unsettled watching the footage. He said the songs gave him nightmares. He claimed the image of the Wicker Man stared back at him from the editing screen. The studio had to find a new editor quickly. The replacement, John Clifford White, didn't believe in curses, but he admitted the film felt different. He worked only during daylight hours. He played classical music to drown out the folk songs. And when he finally locked the cut, he refused to watch it again for 20 years. Even today, some crew members say the film carries a strange energy, like it remembers being made. Not all fear comes from what you see, but from what you feel. That wasn't acting. It was real fear. Number 4. The movie was shot in spring, but felt like eternal May. Even though The Wicker Man is set during the Spring Festival of Beltane, filming actually happened over a few weeks in late spring of 1972. But the director wanted every frame to feel like the peak of spring. Flowers everywhere, trees full, skies bright. So the crew planted hundreds of fake blossom. They brought in potted trees. They even dyed grass greener using harmless vegetable dye. One field looked too bare, so they rented goats just to graze and make it look lived in. The result? A world that feels alive, but too alive, like nature itself is watching. Locals joked the island had never looked so perfect or so strange. Spring wasn't a season, it was a spell. It looked calm. It was pure chaos. Number 3. The lead actor couldn't watch the final scene. For years, Edward Woodward never saw the final burning scene for over a decade after the film was made. He said it hurt too much, because of the fire, but because of what it meant. His character, Sergeant Howie, was a good man who followed the rules, believed in God, and tried to do right. And he was punished for it. That idea haunted Woodward. He once said, "It's not the flames that scare me, it's the silence after." When he finally watched it again in the 1980s, he cried, not from fear, but from sadness. He realized the film wasn't just about pagans versus Christians. It was about the loneliness of belief in a world that doesn't understand you. Some truths are too heavy to face until you're ready. That wasn't acting. It was real fear. Number 2. The Wicker Man inspired real pagan revivals. After The Wicker Man became a cult classic, something unexpected happened. Real pagan and Wiccan groups around the world began using the film as a teaching tool, not because they wanted to burn people, but because it showed ancient rituals with rare respect. Modern pagans said the film captured the spirit of old earth-based faiths, the love of nature, the cycle of seasons, the sacredness of song. Some groups even recreated the maypole dance at festivals, minus the human sacrifice, of course. The film sparked conversations about forgotten traditions. In Scotland, interest in Beltane grew so much that Edinburgh now holds a huge public festival every year, inspired partly by The Wicker Man. A horror movie helped bring old beliefs back to life. Old tools, new magic. Number 1. The film's message is about more than fear. It's about faith. At its heart, The Wicker Man isn't really a horror movie. It's a story about two kinds of faith and what happens when they meet. Sergeant Howie believes in one God, clear rules, and the power of truth. Lord Summer Isle believes in many gods, ancient cycles, and the power of sacrifice. Neither is purely evil. Neither is purely good. The real horror isn't the fire. It's the realization that both men are sincere. Both are willing to die for what they believe. The film asks, what if your truth is someone else's delusion? What if your savior is their scapegoat? That's why the movie haunts us, not because of monsters, but because of mirrors. The scariest thing isn't what burns, it's what you're willing to burn for. The past lived again through art. Bonus fact, a lost scene was found in a garage 40 years later. For decades, fans believed all missing footage from The Wicker Man was gone forever. But in 2012, something amazing happened. A man in England was cleaning out his late father's garage when he found an old film canister labeled Wicker Man unused. His father had worked as a driver for the studio in the 70s. Inside was a 7-minute scene never before seen. Sergeant Howie visits a ruined church on the island where he finds Christian symbols smashed and replaced with pagan carvings. He kneels to pray, but stops when he hears children laughing outside. The scene shows his faith cracking quietly. The footage was grainy, but intact. Restorers cleaned it and added it to the final cut version released in 2013. Without that garage discovery, we'd never have seen Howie's quiet moment of doubt. One small choice changed movie history. The Wicker Man isn't just a movie about fire, fear, or a creepy island. It's about courage, The kind that keeps you standing when everything around you believes something else. It's about imagination, the kind that builds wicker giants and sings old songs in a modern world. And above all, it's about humanity, our need to believe in something, even if it leads us into the flames. This film reminds us that stories can be quiet and still shake us to our core. That horror doesn't need monsters, it just needs truth. And that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is ask, what do I truly believe? If you enjoyed these stories, subscribe for more. Every movie hides a truth, and we'll keep uncovering them, one story at a time.